is the Tulsa County Equalization Board. I'm calling it on Wednesday, May the 27th, 2020. I'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
Dr. Ketchel,
Yes.
Mr. Vanderwilly,
Yes.
Gaines, Ms. Gaines, Ms. Gaines. Uh-oh. Ms.
I think Ruth's having trouble.
Ms. Gaines, can you hear us?
I think she just left. Oh, no, there she is.
There. Her audio is. Aaron, can you hear us?
Yeah, I'm here. Miss Ruth,
I can hear you.
you can hear us. Can you not hear the conference room?
I can't hear the conference room, but I can hear you.
Interesting.
At one point, I could hear the conference room, and then I couldn't hear.
Can somebody in the conference room please speak?
Ms. Gaines, we're calling roll.
Can you hear? You can't hear that at all?
No, I can't.
Give me one moment here.
Okay.
We can hear Ms. Gaines in the conference room.
Can you hear her in the conference room?
I can only hear you.
Okay.
We
You
can
can't hear Mr. Ketchel?
No. So I'll call in.
Okay, I apologize about that.
No problem.
All right, we're waiting for Ruth to call in, and then when she answers, that will complete the roll call and we'll begin our agenda.
Welcome to WebEx. Enter your access code or meeting number followed by pound.
Got it, that's on the computer. My glasses fogged up.
You on the phone, Ruth? I still haven't heard her.
Miss Gaines, can you hear us?
I tried calling in.
All right, I can hear you.
Okay.
Ruth, we can hear you.
Okay, I can hear you now also.
Okay. We are just trying to complete the roll call.
Miss Ruth, I would go ahead and mute your computer. Oh, she muted her phone. I'll go ahead and unmute her there.
All right.
Enter your access
we ready for roll call?
Well, we're
Yeah.
trying, but we're still getting a lot of static somewhere or another. Aaron, do you have any idea what the static's about?
Yeah, it's coming from her phone and her computer reverbing off of each other.
I see.
She's gonna have to turn her phone down.
Ruth, did you hear that?
I did.
Okay. Okay,
That sounded good.
still.
Power off.
All right, we were trying to complete the roll call. And it was your turn, Ruth, to say yes, that you're present.
Present.
Gaines,
She did say yes. Did you not hear her, Debbie?
no, I did not.
Yes.
Got
There
it.
you go. Okay, all present and accounted for. Uh,
There we
Today,
go.
we're dealing with an agenda that has 5 appeals on it. We will begin at the top of the agenda and continue down unless there's some objection to that order. The other thing that I would say is a matter of kind of personal privilege. Before we officially adjourn today, I would like for the board to discuss the memorandum we got from Michael Willis that was forwarded to us this morning, to me anyway, that said they were going to discontinue the video and audio feeds. I would like to discuss that with the board, which would require, as I understand, that all 3 of, or at least 2 of us be present for in room 119 to carry on if that was the case. All right, with that note, our first item on our agenda is an appeal that we have, 716 Joyce A. Brown. It is a residential appeal. Is Ms. Brown present or her representative? All right.
If you'd like to come up around this side.
What we usually do, Ms. Brown, you'll see there's a chair. You can sit at that table right in front of where Charles is.
Thank you.
Sure. What I do is I read into the record what we have in writing from you and the formal appeal. And I know you've submitted some documents also, and those, each member of the board should have those in front of them. But after I read it in, then I will give you a chance to comment on those documents you've added or to add anything else that you'd like to have the board consider before we make our decision about your appeal. First, let me read it in. This appeal, the location is 1134 East 27th Street North here in Tulsa. Last year, it was previously assessed at $4,500. The assessor, after the informal, decided to leave it at that. She says she is appealing the value to be corrected to $2,300 for the following reasons. RS3 properties in the surrounding vacant lot ending, and she lists numbers, and 26350 is 2,300 and others 2,000 along the street. In the same quadrant, RS3 properties, listing those, St. John Med, 1.5 acres at 4 times a square foot at 18,967. Another lot that is is listed at 4,300, not the 19,000 compared to my value of 4,500. Therefore, she is protesting that. Ms. Brown, would you like to take us through the documents you included with your formal protest?
Thank you very much, and thank all the board members for being available, and I appreciate this time and the opportunity to speak to each one of you. That property that you mentioned was part of a collection of properties purchased from a prior owner, which actually was in a bundle of about 13 properties for, let's say, $1,700. So then Cecil went through and put it at $4,500. Being very familiar with the area and family members already having properties in that area, I was aware that there were properties listed, as you mentioned, 26350 at 2,300 and 26850 at 2,300, which those properties would be put at 37 cents per square feet. Excuse me, which each of those properties are 0.37 and 0.39 acres. The property we're discussing is 0.36 acres. So I compared my property ending in 26550 with those two properties. That is because the comparison is in the same subdivision. That subdivision is unplatted. There's also another entity in that property that I discovered that had 1.5 acres, which translates to about 66 square feet. This same entity, 25650, is paying 4,300. That puts that entity at about 7 cents per square foot compared to my 29 per square foot, that's 29 cents. And the others, the 26850 at 14 cents per square foot and 15 per square foot. So for me, paying 4,500 fair market value compared to, in particular, the entity that's paying 7 cents per square foot, that's not fair. So that is the lowest in that subdivision of someone paying that amount of money per square foot, 7 cents. The other two that were comparable to the same amount or acreage I had are paying 14 cents and 15 cents. So I'm at the far end paying close to 30 cents. So I originally asked that my amount come in line with the two properties at $2,300. That's why I listed $2,300 based on the similar acres. But I discovered an entity having about 6,600 square foot paying $4,300 and at 7 cents per square foot. And this entity being a multi-million-dollar corporation. So I included that information regarding that entity. I chose to stay in the subdivision because it is unplatted. In comparison to the comparable that was submitted by the Tulsa County, their comparable has a listing of 9 properties in platted areas. And in their comparables, it seems that they're somewhat focused in coming in close proximity to the price that they want the property to be for me. This comparable from the county is in a platted properties and all throughout the neighborhood. And there's some other things that's interesting about this comparable that the county gave also. I'm not being down on any particular individuals or any particular cultures either, sir. But it seems the majority of these comparables that are submitted by the county, the majority are from Hispanic Latino background, paying somewhat of a higher price than someone who knows the neighborhood. So I would hope that you all would consider looking at the difference in these comparables between what I have submitted and what the Tulsa County assessors have submitted. I looked at the subdivision. So what you have is this initial sheet of paper given the square feet cost, fair market value, acres, etc. Okay? And the very first one on this says 0.29. You have 30 cents. And then it gives you the comparables for the rest of the property. The next one is 7 cents. That's the lowest in that subdivision. I chose to stay in that subdivision because it is unplatted compared to this person at the county goes out beyond the neighborhood into platted communities. This is just the larger drawing which looks at the subdivision. It has 2 green lines. So on this should be the different prices of each one of the properties. Here's the larger property that's about 66 square feet, paying $3,300, and they're asking me to pay $4,500 for about 1,700 square feet, when this individual has about 4 times as many square feet as I have and paying less money, or that entity. So the other drawings are simply just more drawings to give you an idea of the subdivision and the area that I'm basing the comparables on. One is a ledger. One is another information is regarding the entity that owns the 66,000 square feet. So the other drawings are just supporting how I got these numbers on the Excel spreadsheet. And it's very obvious that I'm paying more for the square footage according to the $4,500 compared to other people.
Let me ask a couple of questions about your presentation, just so I make sure I'm understanding, and then I'll give the opportunity to the board to ask some questions. Then, of course, we'll ask the assessor's office, one of their staff will speak to why they believe that is a fair assessment. First, is this property, as I understand it, it does not have a house built on it? It's just bare land, is that correct?
Correct, bare land with trees.
Okay. When did you purchase this property, Ms. Brown?
That was purchased sometime in March or April, but we finally got all the paperwork settled sometime probably in October of last year. But
Okay,
March to April of 2019.
okay. And you purchased it, was that your purchase price, the 4,500?
No, it was not the purchase price. That property was among 13 other properties that were brought in a package for about $1,700. It was owned by a prior person. They passed away in January. They had several properties. So I wanted to purchase about, actually 16 or 17. But I managed to purchase 13 properties in a bundle price. So for about 13 properties, I got 13 properties for around $17,000.
Okay. I just know that the assessor tends, when there is a recent sale, they tend to take whatever was your purchase price and make that the assessment, which is understood as a arm's length transaction, a recent one, and that you did it, and therefore you established that value. I'll ask the assessor's office if that is the way they achieve that value. Let me make sure that I understand what you just said. Essentially, you bought 13 properties for $17,000. Is that what you
Yes,
just said?
sir. Yes,
Okay.
sir.
And this is one of those 13.
Yes, sir.
Is it the only one you're appealing?
I have some others that I'm appealing, and one of them was brought down to about $2,000. So, and the others, I'm still awaiting to get them appealed.
Okay. I'm going to let the other members of the board ask whatever questions they have, and then we'll ask the assessor's staff to speak to your appeal. Charles, how about you next?
My math, I zeroed in basically on the comparables that are strung out right next to her there. And those are priced out at 14 cents, 15 cents a square foot. And hers is at 29 cents a square foot. So my take is there is an inequity there of some degree.
Okay. So you would be willing to revalue her, this particular property on the basis of what you see as the average for the other properties listed in their and their comps or her comps?
Yes, I mean, I have my calculation says it would be 14.84 cents a foot.
Okay,
Pretty-
let's say 15
Which-
cents a foot. Make it
Which
easy.
turned out to be an assessed value of 2,300.
Okay,
Mhm.
all right. Let me, is there any other question or comment, Charles, before we let Ruth have her? Okay, Ruth, do you have any questions of Ms. Brown about her presentation or any of the documents she has shared with us?
I don't have a question at this time.
We'd like to hear who's representing the assessor today.
Don Kelly with Tulsa County Assessor's Office.
Okay, Don, I can't see you yet. Are you coming? Ah, there you are. At least-
Yeah, we can't get too close, so.
Oh, that's right, you guys. All right.
Okay.
I don't have,
Please identify yourself for the record officially and then comment on this appeal.
Don Kelly with the Tulsa County Assessor's Office. And me and Ms. Brown had a talk yesterday, and she convinced me that her number was correct. So she is pretty involved with that piece of neighborhoods and stuff like that up
Yeah.
and around there. And I think her $2,300 on the property, I think that's a fair number. You know, it's I will admit, it's a mess up there. And she was explaining a lot of the turnover and
dynamics.
yeah. So if
So
she's
you,
okay with
so you are in agreement with her appeal then?
yes, sir.
Charles, as I understood, you came up with that same number too, didn't you?
Did, and that's a little scary that Shelley and I would think.
Well,
I
that
take it back.
that sounds Ruth, unless you have some objection, I'm going to ask Charles to move that adjustment to 2,300.
No objection.
Charles, would you make the motion?
Yes, I would make the motion that we set the fair value at $2,300.
It's been
Second the motion.
and seconded. We'll vote as the roll is called.
Dr. Ketchel,
Yes, to adjust.
Mr. Vanderwilling,
Yes.
Ms. Gaines,
Yes.
By action of the board this day, we have adjusted the value assessment on this particular property, $2,300. Ms. Brown, do you have any final comment before we move on?
I have a comment, sir. Actually, that was my original number, okay? But I would like to keep on you all's thoughts in mind about that individual paying 7 cents per square foot. Okay, because realistically, we all should be paying 7 cents per square foot in that division. And that's a multi-million-dollar entity.
You're
But
talking about,
you have the papers in front of you.
you're talking about St. John's Medical Center,
Well, it's the foundation.
right?
Yeah,
Well, unfortunately, we've already voted, so I'm sorry that you didn't understand that.
Sir,
Yes.
that's quite all right. I know I can come back at another day.
Yes, you can.
Uh-huh. All right, thank you. Thank you very much.
Quite welcome.
Mhm.
All right. Next up on our agenda is Lloyd Gilliam. Is he or his representative present?
Is here.
Okay, Mr. Gilliam, and you mind coming up and sitting in the chair so we can see you? Thank you, sir. Let me read, as you heard us do with the previous appeal. I'll read your formal statement that you have submitted in writing to us, along with whatever documents that were included. And then I will give you a chance to add anything or say what you want about that formal appeal. And then at that point, I will ask any questions I have, and then we'll give the other board members their chance, and then finally the assessor. Okay? Here we go. This particular property is located at 2831 East Admiral Place North. Previously, it was on for $85,634. After the informal, the assessor adjusted it downward some to $80,400. He says in his appeal that he believes it still should be corrected to $50,000 even for the following reasons. Sales north of I-244, where this property sits, does not support the assessor's value. I see no clear value above the 50,000. All right. Before we hear from the assessor, we want to hear from you. Did you have other things you wanted to bring up or present to the board?
No, I've just used what documents the assessor's office has. And it's always confused me as to how this price has remained around 80,000. In 2002, the property was sold for 85,500. In 2009, when I acquired the property, I got it for 32,000. It's a foreclosed home. All the HVAC was gone out of it. All the wiring was gone out of it. I invested somewhere around 14,000 to make it livable. Painting, HVAC, new circuit breaker cabinets, refinished the floors, and rewired. I didn't buy this property to flip it. I bought this property knowing that about all I could ever do with it would be to rent it, because I felt like that 14,000 and the 32 brought it to 46, and it was never going to be worth much more than that. I've lived in Tulsa for 65 years, and I've watched the developments, and I've watched neighborhoods come up and rise and then fall back down. I know Tulsa probably better than 99.99% of the people in the county do. So I know that anything north of 244 is not going to amount to much. It's not going to be valued. If I go 2 blocks south toward TU across from 244, then things start clicking. If this property was 2 blocks south, it'd be worth probably 120,000, maybe more. And it's just, where the Quick Trip is located at Admiral and Delaware. You can go by at any time, in which every time I've gone by to check on the property or visit with my renter, I'll go by there, and there's, from 3 to 12 homeless people, I guess, that they've got some beds stuck in there right next to the Quick Trip. It just is not, it's not going to be conducive to selling this property at around 80,000. If I could sell it for 80,000, I'd do it in a heartbeat, but I can't. That's an irrefutable fact. And I've got the listings from the assessor's office that shows an average of about $40 a square foot. And what you've got at 80,000 now is somewhere a little more than $50 a square foot. And I just think, I just want to be fair, as we all do. And I want a fair market value on this house. That's as simple as I can put it.
All right. The only other question I had on their report, they say you're renting it for $700 a month. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And you've owned the property, you said when you purchased it, for 32,000. When was that again?
2009, sir.
Okay. Charles, I give you a chance before we go forward. We want to hear the assessor on this, obviously, but I think we're clear where he stands.
I'm not sure, looking back at my notes, I'm willing to try to give him some relief, but my notes are not as crisp as I thought they were when I was working on this. So I'm willing to give him some relief. My number was 65.6.
65.6, okay. Ruth, did you have any questions about this? I was looking at that spreadsheet that the spreadsheet that was provided to us, of course. And it looks like right now what they've done, and they say they have them at $49 a square foot. That's how they ended up with the 80,400. But I noticed that the range here is considerable. And I'm going to ask the assessor about that when we have a chance. But I'm kind of like Charles. I wanted to go down some, but I hadn't come up with a number like Charles. Where are you on this discussion?
I apologize for the noise. I have a question. He purchased initially for what amount?
32,000.
32,000. And he's added to that.
I'm sorry, ma'am. I can't hear you.
It's difficult for any of us right now. What she was asking was your purchase price. I told her it was 32,000, and you had reported you put another 14,000 in it, which got your investment up to 46,000. And you are currently asking for an assessment of 50,000. Now,
I would like to hear from the adjuster.
sure. Okay. Don, are you still there?
Yes, sir.
Please come and explain the spreadsheet you shared with us and how the assessor staff got the number of the 80,000 number that they proposed.
Yes, sir. Don Kelly with the Tulsa County Assessor's Office. Like I say, we try to put in, comps at 30 sales, and over there we're having a little bit of trouble because there's not a lot of them. There are 2 sales, as Mr. Gilliam said, that are on the north side of 244, and then the rest of them on the other side. I had actually talked to Mr. Gilliam last week about this, and he's made a good point about, you know, when you're on the other side of the highway up there, you're more affected by TU because you're not, what, a mile from there possibly, if
Oh,
that.
TU?
Yeah,
Oh, TU starts at Fourth and
yeah, you could almost go up there, but once you get on the other side of the highway, that's why the values are so, they would drop off. But again, we have to put it, you know, in a value in the range, and the $50 is what the appraiser had suggested. But also with the rent at $700, if there's a rent multiplier, that probably put it around $7,000.
I'm sorry, it was put at 70,000, you said?
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Right.
Now, the
Let me-
only other thing I noticed is your property seems to be a two-lot property, even though you just said you have one house on it.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, it's something that was combined, looks like combined several, you know, probably years back.
Yeah.
I'd like to speak to the $700 rent. I know I said that went in and put new HVAC in it, da, 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 da. And before I could get a renter in there, they'd come and took the new copper HVACs out of there. Now, the renter has been wonderful. He's always late, but he always pays. And he mines the property.
Right.
Super.
Yes, he's a recovering addict, been sober for 15 years, and just did a wonderful job. But he's there. If he wasn't there, the copper would be yanked out of there, and all the HVAC and anything else they could get.
Yeah.
The house just east of me is a duplex, with one side is a collapsed roof and boarded up. The house west of me is the church for the deaf. And then you move on down to the Quick Trip. And then back of me, I don't know what's back there. But it, you know, we can play that F game if it was south of there and that, but.
Well, we could also say highway access.
Yeah.
From that.
You know, and, you know, maybe someday the highway department will come through and raise everything and do that. I don't know, but it's just, I've just been lucky, so far.
Well, let me make a suggestion. Charles had already moved down to around 66, I think. I'm willing to go a little lower. But Charles, was there some particular rationale why you picked up that number? Otherwise, I multiplied $35 a square foot and came up, I think, with 57.4, which is slightly more than his 50, but it comes closer to explaining that $700 rent. That's the only place where I see he's getting a return on his investment that's reasonable.
I calculated it at $30.48 a foot, and was trying to compare it to some of the others. Right now, assessor has it at $49 a foot, $49.02. So I was coming off of that one. He's wanting 50,000.
Yep.
Well, that calculates out to $30.48.
The thing that I noticed is those three other Admiral properties up there, those are the ones north of 244, aren't they?
Yes, sir.
The rest of them are not really comparable in my view, Charles. That's why I was going lower. I just picked 35 because the lowest up there was 33 and the highest was 42. So I just put myself in the middle of that and said 35. And then when I multiplied that times his square foot, according to my little calculator, it came out to 57,400.
Well, we're kind of sort of close.
Let me suggest,
Okay.
pigs get fat, hogs get slaughtered.
All right.
Hey, I
You
grew
know,
up in Arkansas. I know what that means.
I'm a reasonable man.
Okay.
We'll
This
settle
50
this, you know.
No, we'll make it, because I know he likes even numbers, the assessor staff does. I'm willing to say either way, I can either go 58,000 even, or if you want, we can come back down to the number I actually got, 57.4. Ruth, you haven't had a chance. Do you have a number here?
I've got 60,000.
Okay, you're at 60. Charles, you get to decide between my, let's say 58 and her 60. Well, you had 66 though, didn't you?
I did, almost. And Ruth is at 60?
Yep.
I'll line up with Ruth.
Okay, you guys make the motion then. I think that's going to be about the best we can do for you today. Charles, or, well, Ruth, you make the motion. It was your number. Ruth, can you make the motion? Oh, have we lost
It's
her?
too much noise when I make it, so let Charles make it.
Okay. Charles,
Okay, I move that we set the value at $60,000.
I'll second that so Ruth doesn't have to squawk at us. And it's been moved and seconded to set it at 60,000. We'll vote as the roll is called.
Dr. Ketchel,
Yes.
Van Willy,
Yes.
Ms. Gaines,
Yes,
We've adjusted to 60,000 even on this appeal today. Thank you, Mr. Gilliam.
Mr. Ketchel, thank you and the members of the board and the assessor's office.
You're welcome.
Just here to serve, right? Can I get a drink of coffee?
Ah, take a breath, Charles. Yeah, have a little coffee.
Okay.
Okay, next up on our agenda item is Michael Williams. Is that correct? Is the representative here for him?
yes.
All right. Mr. Williams, welcome. You found your chair. Great. Let me do as I've done so far, which is to read into the record what we have in your written protest. And then we'll give you a chance to go over the documents that you have submitted and add anything else that you wish to add today. This is protest item, by the way, 873. Michael Williams. The property is located at 1626 South 109th East Avenue. It was previously valued at $99,192. The assessor, after the informal, moved it down to $80,000. He says in his appeal that he wishes it to be corrected to $65,000 for the following reasons. It needs upgrades and improvements and repairs necessary to have that evaluation. All right, Mr. Williams, please add what you wish.
Well, first, I apologize. I'm not as organized as everybody else, and especially Ms. Brown. She had her ducks in a row. Man, I was impressed.
Yes.
So, here, the bottom line is this: I bought that house 9 years ago for $65,000. Okay. In those 9 years, every year I would get the paperwork that would work on the road during the critical time, that critical crunch time that you have to get this stuff adjusted and go through this and you know, help at that time. And for the years past that, I lived in hotels about 40 weeks a year. So this is my residence. I bought this house in a hurry whenever I was in a breakup with somebody, and the reason I bought it and paid what I paid for it was because the financing was available in a manner in which would help me out. I didn't argue with the price. I just paid it and said, that's it. You know, I needed to have it because I was turning around and leaving the state again for another 2 months, 2 weeks after I bought it. So every year since then, I have gotten these tax forms at the end of the year and saw the valuation and thought, you know, hell, if I could get that for it, I'd sell it. You know, you know, I mean, you know, find me a buyer for this and maybe we're in business, you know? So, I just shut that part of my life down. I'm not traveling anymore. And this is the first opportunity I've had to actually address the whole tax thing.
Okay,
And, I don't have anything more than just the pictures that I gave you.
right,
To show you some of the problems I'm dealing with. There are two particular trees on that property that are wreaking havoc with it. One of them is wreaking havoc not only with mine, but the neighbors. It is.
From a root system? or-
Yes, sir. The roots are, and the pictures, I emailed them to Alicia. Y'all should have them. If you don't, I can pull them up on my iPad. But they had crippled the driveway. And that the foundation of the house, it goes from the driveway through the garage, through the kitchen,
Hmm,
off the back patio, that has just got a crack that is a 1/4 inch wide all the way across. Now, it has, that's from the tree on the front. The tree on the side is actually, now both of them are wreaking havoc with the brick. And you have pictures of where the brick is like offsettling and shifting, and that is strictly from the trees. There was a tree in the backyard that was causing problems with the main sewer line, which I have eliminated. But the roots are still there and they still seem to thrive because twice a year I have to have them come out and snake from the clean out to the main sewer just to keep my flow going, you know? But the thing is, my house is the only one bath house in Magic Circle, I think. I think I have the only one bath house in that area. And for me, it's no problem. I'm a bachelor with 2 ex-wives and no real future prospects, and I'm good with that. So, you know, one bath suits me just fine. But if I were to ever sell the house, that would be a killer. I mean, that would absolutely wreck, unless I found another guy like me. So between the updates that need to be done to the house and especially the HVAC system, I mean, I think that is the original, and that, I think I sent you a photo of it also. That is, I think it's the original Rheem HVAC system that was put in that house, I think when it was built in '69.
yeah,
So I paid 65 for it 9 years ago. And now all of a sudden, I'm hearing 90,000, which they dropped it back down. But I mean, either I'm some kind of development tycoon who knows how to buy the right property. Because I mean, I'm getting, you know, I'm seeing an increase of $30,000. I mean, that's a 50% increase on the value of this property from when I bought it to what it is now. And I haven't done anything to it to give it that kind of value. So that's my problem with the whole thing. And I'm grateful that you guys give me an opportunity to talk to you and hope come to something that's reasonable.
okay. We'll certainly try to. Charles, before I go to you, let me say a couple of things or ask a couple of questions. Since you've been back, have you been able to add anything? I looked at all your pictures and I can see where you need some work. And obviously that is an old air and heating condition that one might want to replace. But have you already made some additional investment since you've come back to live there?
Well, no, I've always lived there, but no, the only thing that I've really changed is, you know, I'm kind of a germaphobe, but I yanked out all the carpet as soon as I bought it. And I replaced it with that Pergo flooring, which that HVAC system apparently overflowed the air conditioner tray underneath it, and it destroyed a bunch of that Pergo, so I'm gonna have to deal with that again. But no, I mean, you know, it's, again, I'm a bachelor. I'm lucky to dust, man.
Sure. if you were doing what we call cost to cure, that is, and we're not going to hold this against you, we're just trying to figure out what you see as the kind of repair, the kind of money you'd have to put in it, what we call cost to cure, to get it back up to where somebody might be willing to pay you that 80,000 that they think they want to make the assessment. How much do you think? Another 15,000 replacing the air, the heating, and some other things that get you there? If not, that's okay too. I'm just asking.
No, I think 15 was what it would cost just for the HVAC.
Oh,
I mean,
okay,
that wouldn't even address the foundation issues. I'm not sure with the foundation issues if it would even qualify for an FHA loan.
sure.
So, you know, I mean, honestly, I think for me to sell that place, I'd have to drop 30 grand.
Ah, okay,
And, but I'm not in a hurry to sell it. Like I said, it's my home. You know, I park my motorcycle there, I park my car there, and it houses my pillows.
the other thing I always try and check when I'm looking at this, where a guy's living and saying he's planning on living there, but might have to make some repairs. How about the roof on that? You haven't talked about that. Has it been done recently or not?
Yes, I did. I had the tree on the side that I told you about, a branch came off of it and busted about, I think it was 7 of my rafters. And so I went on ahead and replaced when I was gonna have it repaired, I just went on ahead and had, because I didn't know the age of the roof. So I went on ahead and had it re-roofed and had them scab the rafters back up, you know, on either side
Sure.
to fix the damage done.
Off the top of your head, do you remember what it cost you to do that?
About 5 grand.
Okay. Charles, do you have some questions or comments you want to make about this?
I'm not sure if it's a question or a comment, but structurally, is it on slab?
Yes, sir.
So is the slab gone or?
No, the slab is there. I mean, the slab is there. It's just,
Yeah,
like I said, the crack goes from the driveway across the backyard.
So
Through the
the
back.
slab's cracked, the foundation,
Yes,
outer walls are cracked.
yes, there are sheetrock, like there are like in the bedroom where the side tree is. You know, you got the white looking deal like this, that where the sheetrock is kind of gotten tweaked. And, you know, I'm not that picky of a guy, honestly. You know, I'll slap some more paint on it, I'm good to go, you know. But again, this is all about just the value of the house. I have a real hard time seeing how, you know, a house can go up in value 50% in 9 years.
Charles?
So,
Yeah,
yeah,
go ahead.
maybe it's a question for Don. How
Well,
much-
let's let Don, Don, you gotta join us then if he wants to talk to you. Formally introduce yourself again, just so we don't get confused. I mean, all these mass strangers, you know, I'm a little.
Don Kelly with the Tulsa County Assessor's Office.
So, can I talk to you now? May I talk to you?
Please do.
Official.
How much of this kind of information do you folks know when you go out to stare at this house?
We don't. You're basically, we're valuing, we have to put the value of the neighborhood by use of drive-by appraisals. If we're in visual inspection area, which I believe this one was, no, this one will be this year. So we don't know about structural damage and stuff like that. And God knows you wouldn't want the government in your house anymore than that. I am part of the government. So, but anyway, yeah, we wouldn't know about that. What we're trying to do is basically, like I said, put the houses within a certain range. And, you know, like I say, it was at 99,000, which is in kind of the range for the neighborhood. Now, that's assuming that the house, you know, without the issues and stuff like that. Because it looks like what Mike had done, our appraiser did the informal, dropped it $20,000 and puts on the very low end of the sales. That looks like what he tried to do to accommodate the issues and stuff like that. And I agree, it does seem like these houses, you know, like how it can go up so much, but we have to put the value within a certain range and stuff like that. That's how we, you know,
Well, and the other thing is the location. I am the northernmost property in Magic Circle. I mean, literally, there is a wall.
Right.
That it goes into these condos, and not that I have any problem with the folks that live there, but it is primarily HUD owned and rented, and this neighborhood is becoming a rental neighborhood. I mean, and I'll take an owner over a renter any day of the week as a neighbor, obviously. But, again, there's a reason that it was sold for 65,000. They did not want to, they knew, and they carried the paper. I mean, that's how I bought it. They carried the paper on it because they knew they wouldn't be able to get it. It wouldn't be able to be financed. And my thing was, hey, I'll pay your price. You take my note. And, and it wasn't that big a deal for me because I knew I'd pay it off. And I paid it off in 5 years and called it done. So, but again, I mean, this valuation here, you find me a buyer for that and it's sold, I will start moving my shit out, my stuff out tomorrow.
Often thought if we just had a board member corrupt enough to be a real estate broker, we get that offer quite often. We could make it. All right, Ruth, we haven't given you a chance. Are you there? Ruth? I don't know. We may have lost her.
Can you hear me?
Now I can.
Yeah, I don't see my picture on the screen anymore, but the sound sounds a lot better.
Good.
But at any rate, I'm looking at it. It appears that the assessor has given him consideration in that he is now next to the bottom of square footage.
Yep.
And that's at the 80,000. They dropped it, what, almost 20,000?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, that was right after they went.
I would not be willing to go less than 75,000, but I think the assessor has done a good job where it is. So my view would be to sustain what the assessor has said, but I'm open to other suggestions.
Okay. Charles, are you coming up with a number or not?
I have not.
Okay, I'll put a number out. I'm willing to go a little lower than what Ruth was saying, as I understood her, mainly because I think he does look at probably 25,000 before he's going to get close to that market. I'm willing just to give us a little bump and move it up from 65 to 72,000. That's essentially $55 a square foot. I'm being generous, though. Other board members, you have the right to say, don't give away the barn, Dr. Ketchel. What do you think, Charles?
I'm with you there, Doc.
Okay, well, I'm willing to make the motion this time since it was my number. But let me give the protester another, you're going to get raised from that 65 to that you want to 72,000. I think that's about as much as I can do for you today.
Well, that last gentleman, what was it? Pig in a hole?
Yes. All right, I'll make the motion then. I move that we adjust this from 80,000 down to 72,000 as the fair market value this day. Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. We'll vote as the roll is called to adjust.
Dr. Ketchel,
Yes,
Mr. Vandler,
Yes.
Ms. Gaines,
Yes.
we have acted to adjust to 72,000 today as the fair market value for assessment on this property. Thank you very much, Mr. Williams. Hopefully that'll help some.
Thank you so much. You guys have a great day. Don't let the COVID get you.
we'll mail it to you as soon as possible.
All right, let's see what we got next. Next up is Christopher Johnson. That's item number 875. It's also residential. Is Mr. Johnson or his representative here?
President.
Please come join us up in the chair. Thank you. As we've done before, I'll read into the record what I have in writing from you, and then any supporting documents that you have submitted or anything you want to add now before the board tries to make a final decision. Here's where we're at. This property is located at 3749 South 28th Avenue West. It was on previously at 75,000. The assessor decided they would leave it at that number after the informal. He's appealing that it should be corrected to 65,000. He says for the following reason: home is in the area that are comparable. The taxes went from 824 to 1,130, an over 5% increase. Now, let me explain just something to you, Mr. Johnson, so you understand what the board legally can do, cannot do. We don't have any control over the taxes, certainly not the tax rate. What we can do is adjust the assessment for the fair market value, but then the taxes simply are set by the way the legislature or the county has set the taxes for an assessment. Do you understand?
Okay.
Okay. We do know it has an impact on your taxes. Don't misunderstand, but I'm just saying we don't speak to that number. Okay. What else would you like to say for the board to hear before we get our questions and comments about this? And then we'll finally hear from the assessor why they wish to leave it at the number that it was set at a year ago.
Oh, I gotta do a lot of updates to that home. I gotta do a new roof, water heater, all the ductwork's rotted out that I need to replace. And then, you know, we just went to comparable homes in that area, and obviously their taxes are a lot cheaper in that area.
Okay, have you tried to get anybody to give you some estimates on what you see as the things you're gonna have to do before you reach a fair market value?
So for the roof, I got an estimate for 5,000, and then the ductwork 35, and then water heater, I got an estimate for 12. But I ended up doing the water heater already.
Well, good. All right, what else? Anything else you want us to know about before we begin discussing what we see as a fair market value?
I think that's all I got. I'm not as good as the last people.
No, but it's okay. We all come into these situations with not a whole lot of previous experience unless it's your business. Okay, Charles, I kind of asked, he's kind of given me the numbers I wanted about cost to cure already. But any other thing you've looked at this, he's right now on for $60 a square foot because it was a December purchase price. And I assumed that the assessor just saw that as the deed price and said, well, you thought it was a fair market value then, and so it must be now.
Yeah, I know the taxes paid really doesn't enter into this, but it, my mine says it was a 37% increase in property taxes. So neither one's a great big number, but percentage wise, that's what he was honing in on.
Yeah.
So,
Do you have a sense that there's something about that price that he paid just overpaid? We usually don't get into the business of protecting people from their own market judgments. Hello, I can't.
hurts my ears.
Ruth, what do you want to say?
That's what you've indicated that you purchased this home in December for the 75,000. Is that correct?
Yes.
And then it appears that you have rental on it for 8 to 850, so that would even put the value up a little bit higher to me. So it seems like you got a bargain at the 75,000 that you purchased, and I would say that would be the fair market value. That's all I've got.
Okay, is that rental that the assessor has put on our spreadsheet, is that correct? Are you getting 800, 850 a month for this house?
Oh, I haven't rented it out yet.
Well, that's strange. I wonder where they got the number. We'll ask the assessor about that. Okay, Ruth, seemingly he hasn't rented it yet, but the assessor must think he's going to get something like that. Charles, did you have any other comment looking at that spreadsheet?
No, I don't.
Okay, let's ask Mr. Kelly to rejoin us at the table and explain the assessor's position on this property.
Don Kelly with the Tulsa County Assessor's Office. That 850 looks like Chuck had found it listed for 850. That's where we got the 850 from.
Okay. But he's saying he hasn't rented it yet. Is that correct, Mr. Johnson?
Right.
Okay.
And like Yard said earlier, that's why we had it on for 75,000. The sales price is the same. We put it on there, and it fits the market. It's right, kind of in the middle, a little bit lower than the sales in that neighborhood. But I lost my train of thought.
Well, if he's going to if he got that kind of rental, that would be that's a good ROI. That's a good return on investment for 75,000 if he gets an $800 rental. But if he doesn't have it rented, then right now it's just
Is it rentable or?
Well, I was gonna do the roof and the ductwork first before I got anybody. in.
Okay, so it's just sitting there.
I didn't want to do anything until after this was all.
so if that's true, he's looking at maybe $500 cost to cure before he rents then.
Well, that's part of it. But I was also going to address the taxes going up like that. A lot of times in the houses, if somebody's owned it for a long time, they have like senior freeze. That's
Oh,
usually
yeah,
when you see
no.
stuff like that. So.
No, that's the reason the taxes go up. That's why I told Mr. Johnson up front, we can't adjust taxes. All we can do is speak to the market value.
Yeah.
Charles, Ruth said she thinks that's pretty fair. She'd be willing to sustain. I guess the only consideration I have is that he's got to put another 8,000 into it before it's going to be rentable. But I don't know, Mr. Johnson, do you think you could rent it right now if you found a person, or do you think you've got to do those roof and duct repairs?
The ductwork's pretty bad, and that roof needs to be done pretty soon.
So are you actively working on that, or is it just sitting there, or?
Right now, it's just sitting, because I wanted to get through this first.
Well,
What is Ruth saying?
Ruth,
Is it being advertised for the 800 to 850? Where did that figure come from? Are you trying to rent it, or is there some
I think
advertisement on that for that? Don, where did that figure come from?
That's a number. And I'm not exactly sure found it at.
I think the lady that owned it for me rented it out.
Oh, she did. Okay. So maybe in a previous listing that was out there.
Okay, the fact. So I'm staying with sustaining is what I'm thinking.
okay. Charles, where are you? Charles?
I'm willing to come off. Ruth wanting to sustain at 75.
Yes, that's what she said.
He's wanting 65.
Yeah, how about splitting the baby and doing it at 70? I would be comfortable. That gives him 5,000 to do a roof. I think he's going to have to do that to keep any kind of renter in there.
You beat me to it. That's where I was headed.
Okay. I'll move it this time. I move that we adjust down to 70,000 as the fair market value given the cost to cure on the roof and the ductwork.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded. We'll vote as the roll is called. Yes.
Mr. Vanderwiller,
Yes.
Ms. Gaines,
Yes.
All right, we have voted to adjust your fair market value to 70,000 even.
Thank you.
All right, we have, I believe, one more item. Melinda Wood, that's item number 629 on today's agenda. It is also residential.
I'll need to see the driver's license. Please get the affidavit, please.
Is there a representative or is Ms. Wood here?
Yes, I'm here. I
Good.
brought the affidavit. She brought that in with her.
All right. Can you join us at the table?
Okay. You're good.
Thank you. Well, you've seen how this goes by now. I'm going to read into the record what we have from you in writing, and then we'll give you a chance to add whatever you want or to comment on any documents that you wish come before the board. This property board is listed at 3549 South Winston Avenue. It was previously on for $143,106. After the informal, the assessor's office reduced it to 130,000 even. She says in her appeal, she believes it still should be corrected to 115,000 even. She says the following reasons. Property was purchased through McGraw Real Estate Agency, Kerry Brown agent, after more than 60 days on the market for 75,000. The assumption that I bought it below market value is false, and the increases need to be in line with the purchase price from 2010. Steady, but not big. I'm going to ask you, Ms. Wood, to explain that last comment. I'm not sure I followed. You bought it, are you saying, for 75, and you think there's something wrong with the,
I think saying that it's worth 143,000 in 10 years that I've owned it is, I think that's a very large margin of increase.
all
To say
right.
that
So you
I bought it
owned
at
it.
fair market value at $75,000.
Yeah.
I would hope it would increase, but in order for it to be 140, 150, or any of the other higher ones, there is one on there for 114,000. That would more likely describe my house or the house that I purchased
Okay.
at this point.
Is this your residence?
It is not. I bought it while my son was going through TU. He lived there. He had 2 roommates that paid, between the 3 of them, that paid the mortgage and the utilities. I made no money on the house for 6 years as he was getting a petroleum engineering degree.
And are you
So-
renting it now? And if so, for how much per month?
I am renting it now, and I rent it for $600 a month.
Okay.
It's actually my son's, and it takes him a while, but he gets the money. It allows me to make a little bit of money.
Okay.
Now, after 6 years of making 0 money.
Sure. And your stated appeal, therefore, is you want to have it at the adjustment to 115,000 is correct.
Correct.
Okay.
If I had invested the money that, if the countertops and kitchen cabinets and et cetera, yes, I could market it for 150,000, but I've been in mortgage banking. Now I work for a title company. I know how properties are valued, and if I threw it on Zillow to just try and get rid of it, I'd probably list it about 100, 120, 125 so that I can come down and make them feel like they got a bargain. That's what you do. But
Okay.
there's no way I would put it on the market for 130,000. I wouldn't get it.
And what you were saying, I missed a little bit. The mic still is difficult.
Sorry.
Were you saying you needed to put something in the kitchen or something that before you
Yeah, I
market
mean,
it?
the kitchen, when I bought the house, an elderly lady had actually passed away there. She had owned it all her life. There were no updates done. There is, besides the installation of a handicap bathtub. So it's like one of those that you can sit in.
Yeah.
That's the only thing she made an adjustment, and that's just because she got into her 80s and that's what she needed. So there isn't any of the things that are going to make a house go for over 120,000. I'd feel lucky to get 120,000, and being that I bought it for 75, that'd be amazing. But you know, I just not to be not to feel picked on, but this is like the fourth time I have come in on this particular house. I live less than a mile away, and I've never had this problem. And I wonder if it is because in the informal hearing, I heard her say, "Oh, we showed you bought it like 15,000 below value in 2010." That is not true. The, the, the listing was out there for quite some time. It needed 11 piers on the foundation to even be able to qualify for conventional loan. So, you know, it wasn't, I'm not Ron Sage of Homevestors. I'm not out there like strong arming widows to buy their houses for, do you know Ron? Because, yeah, well.
That's like a horrible person.
God,
This is
I've
being, you
I've
do
had
realize
widows crying on the phone because they think because they signed, they have to sell their house for whatever low price they agreed to. That was not done. So,
okay.
anyway.
I'm going to, okay, I think I understand your position. You are still saying you might have some cost to cure. And therefore say $10,000-15,000 before you get it up to where you think you could market it for around 120, 125. Is that my understanding of your testimony?
Correct. It would take quite an investment on my part to get it up to what you guys are saying it's worth.
Okay. Charles, I'll give you the next go round here. What do you think? I was looking at the spreadsheet that they've shared with us. She's at $90 a square foot under their current assessment at the 130,000. That's a reduction from their viewpoint, but it doesn't put her really in the middle of the spreadsheet they're showing us. The middle would be higher than that, so they've got her down. What do you think, Charles?
Well, a couple of observations. This address is 3549 South Winston. Is that correct?
Correct.
Two of the comparables that the assessor is listing, and one of them is 3532 South Winston.
Yeah.
It's at 9783 a foot. And the other one is at 30.
I'm not saying that isn't true. I see those. But I'm saying that I could also probably show you the listing, and that house would have things that would make somebody who wants to live in Midtown excited about buying a house. And they're not going to have that excitement about my house. that was owned by an 80-year-old woman who still has the original kitchen cabinets and the countertops, etc. I did not buy it to pour money into it. I bought it because it was a safe space, not far from PU, where my son could be an adult away from me. So, I mean, it was a good investment. My mother had passed away, and she knew a good, that real estate, I believe in real estate. It just depends on how you handle it. And I did not handle it to like go further into debt. I had some money to put down where I have a small mortgage on it, so I don't have to rent it out for a lot. And at the time, since my son was in it, there was no rent at all. It was just a matter of like, I could break even. And so I'd like to stay with, okay, 75,000, okay, we get up to 90, okay, we get up to 110. From the other time I appeared, once again, it was like taking it to 136 and having to fight it back down. A good increase of 10 to 20,000 on property you own in a city means good things. It means the city's good. It means you picked the house in a good neighborhood. It means good things, but huge jumps I don't think they're good for the city, because I'm not that person that would go to a bank and remortgage the place to the hilt, but other people would. And then you basically have the housing crisis of 2009. You have people overvaluing, thinking, oh, well, it says here my house is worth 140,000, so let me go take out another 40,000 and go buy a boat, or and I just think, as in all markets, nice gradual increases make sense. Big jumps don't make sense, and I question them. And then I take time off of work. Instead of a 30-minute lunch hour, I will have to figure out either to use this as vacation time, and I know other people don't do that. And I've been in these hearings, like, for people that live on Reservoir Hill, and had you guys say, oh, well, that area is trending. Well, it doesn't trend for the person that's lived there for 25 years, and all of a sudden his property taxes are more than he can afford. It's just nice.
Ms. Wood, I understand your sense of the real estate market is not rational. Let's just say that right off the bat. The assessor is faced with certain legal requirements. They try to meet those. We try to respond to the evidence that is brought to the board, and we'll do that today for you, but we cannot fix the real estate market, okay?
Well, cooler heads should prevail.
Well, we're pretty cool, actually, I think, but anyway, Charles, you had a question, comment.
She's asking for 115,000.
Yes.
That
Which-
calculates to 79.63 a foot. And if the listings on the comparables are comparable, I guess, this would put it at 79.63, which would be next to the lowest of the comparables on a square foot basis.
Yes.
So with 115 would put her at the bottom of the neighborhood, I think, or this.
Yes, that's exactly what it would do. The only thing she has said is that she believes to make it marketable, she's still going to have to fix the kitchen up. So, we're talking $10,000 or $15,000 at least, even if she gets a good deal on the cabinets and whatever appliances she has to add. But let's go forward here, Charles. Did you have another comment or question?
Nope, that's it, unless you ask me for a number.
Okay, well, you think about that number while I give Ruth a chance to ask her questions or make her comments. Ruth? Hello, are you there?
Hold on, am I here? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I can hear you all very well, so I've heard all of the testimony. Based on what I heard, I think it was indicated that she would probably put the house on the market at 115 in hopes of negotiating up to get at least 120. Now, based on what the assessor has done, I think he did, I would be willing to go down a little bit more. I would set my value at 123, but I would like to hear from the assessor.
Okay. Let's hear from the assessor.
Don Kelly with the Tulsa County Assessor's Office.
Yes, Don, can you tell us, are you, she doesn't like the word trending, but I know you guys are kind of captured by it, so go ahead, trend away.
Trending, it's like trend this, it's like that's like.
It is, and it does, you know, like I say, trending is a way that we try to keep the values within a certain range. This year has been nuts. I mean, the values have increased like nobody's business, and where she's at, Midtown is getting so expensive that it's getting bigger in the sense that it's growing. You know, everybody thinks Midtown 21st, let's go on, because nobody can afford it up there. So they're going south, they're going east, and you know, wherever. But what that does, that drives the value of the other houses, and that's where we're seeing all the increases. That's my opinion. It's a nice neighborhood over there. It's
I grew up at 28th and Florence. I get Midtown.
Yeah, and it's
I watched the white flight go out.
Yeah,
and I said,
well, it's just so expensive over there. Yeah, and they brought their checkbook. So that's kind of where we're at, and that's why the increase, this was in the visual inspection area this year, and that's why she saw the increase. It was, I've seen their work, and it's just, it's amazing, the values, and that's a 4-year span that we're talking about, that, and it's going up that much. It's just, and what happens is, like I say, folks who own the houses for years are the ones who get kind of caught up in the gears on these things. So the good news is that's a nice neighborhood, and you know she bought well, and we're not.
And I hope to sell well, but
Mm-hmm.
don't tell me that I can sell it for 150 right now, because I couldn't, or 140 or 130. I couldn't. It would not mark it out. No one's going to walk into that house and be like ready to write me a check for that. It's just not going to happen.
Well, again, like I said, we're kind of in a rock and a hard spot. We have to put it within the sales and stuff like that, and that's why that's the increases.
Well, and you saw from their what they're presenting to us, they show you this, I assume, too, is they're saying they put you on at the bottom from their viewpoint in terms of the sales they're comparing you to in the neighborhood. They're spread out a little bit, but I don't think they're unfair in terms of the comps they're using. Charles, did you come up with a number?
Not yet.
Okay, I'll put the number on I'm willing to come closer to what she said in passing, which is to try and get her around the 120s. I would propose 123,000 even. That's roughly $85 a square foot. So it comes down about $5 a square foot from where the current assessment is.
Dr. Ketchum, can you repeat that? You broke right up when you made it.
Yes, I'm sorry. I'm proposing that we set the fair market value at 123,000 even. When you run the square footage by that comes out about $85 a square foot. Gives her a $5 a square foot break. I think she could go into the market, particularly if she put maybe 10 or 15 into, she could probably sell it for at least that. What do you think, Charles? Am I being too generous here?
No.
You're willing to go with that? Ruth, what about you?
Did you say 123, 123?
Yes, I did.
That's what I proposed initially. So yes, I'm in agreement with 123.
I missed that, Ruth. I'm sorry. Guys, we got to get a better connection. We'll talk about that. All right. Ruth, you make the motion, Dad.
I move we set the fair market value at $123,000.
And I'll second that. We've been moved and seconded. We'll vote as the roll is called.
Dr. Ketchel,
Yes.
Van Willis,
Yes.
Ms. Gaines,
Yes.
All right. By action of the board, we have adjusted the fair market value today on this property to 123,000 even.
Thank you. My tax dollars at work.
Money well spent.
I even got a free mask out of it.
Hey, all right.
All right, thank you.
We are through with our formal agenda, but I want to have a discussion on a memorandum that the county clerk sent out and that Deborah forwarded to me and I assume to all of you.
can we have a discussion without it being on the agenda? My question.
Okay, I'm of mixed mind about that. The reason is I'm going to protest this decision. And if it's not in the record, is Michael Willis going to see it? Deborah? What?
We can email Mr. Willis, who is not in attendance today.
Well, I'm concerned that it, well, okay, I will make an arbitrary decision. We are not adjourned. This is on the record. You're going to have to record it in a minute, Debbie. Sorry. Here's the question I'm raising. Did all of you get Michael Willis's memorandum saying effective Monday, June the 1st, which is next Monday, we will discontinue the video audio feeds of our public meetings? I visited with most of the internal interested parties and have not had any pushback on my recommendation. Dear Mr. Willis, this is my pushback. Okay? I may not be internal. I'm not sure whether I fit into that category, but I do want to push back. From my viewpoint, this is still an issue of health. That's the reason I've been doing these remotes. But I want to give the other two board members a chance to speak to it too, since Ruth has also chosen to be remote. But Charles, you've chosen to come in, so I assume we may have a diversity of opinion to report to Mr. Willis, okay? What do you think? Is that a good idea, or should we protest it and insist that those of us who need to be remote should have that option?
From my observation or my standpoint, it would be a lot easier logistically not to be on the screen, but I had the same concern. We go from 1 minute doing remotes, and the next minute the remote's gone, and I think we're at the I'm not sure what the word is. We run the risk of maybe hitting something that we don't want to even consider. I mean, I'm very willing to continue remotes, but logistically, it's easier not to. But you run the risk. That's what bothers me.
Ruth, where are you on this?
Well, I elected to attend remotely because I am in the high risk area for the COVID-19. With proper precautions, if necessary, I would mask up and come in and initially see if I felt safe. If not, then I would make another choice. So.
Okay. Well, I'm somewhat like you, Ruth, maybe a little more stubborn. But here's my proposal, I guess you could say. Now, we don't have to vote on this. It's not an action of the board. But I think Michael ought to realize that what it will demand is that if we come in and the three of us are there, and yes, we can be spaced out, and yes, we can have the mask, that's all fine with me. But the truth of the matter is, then you have to insist that everybody else coming into that room is masked. And I'm not sure they feel they legally can do that. That's my question. If he's unwilling to say, yes, we will require everybody coming into a hearing to be masked and, prepared to deal with the fact that the board is masked also, then I'm willing to come in, but I do not think it reduces the risk to those of us. Yes, my birthday's in July. I'll be 83 years old. I'm in the high risk group. And I'm not looking forward to time in the hospital, friends. I'm just not. Okay. Anyway, that's the comment I wanted to get officially on the record. I think Debbie can summarize that any way she wishes. And I look forward to hearing from Michael because I assume he has an opinion in this matter. Is there any other comment on this? Since it's been my point of personal privilege, I'll take responsibility for it. Charles?
Who is the ultimate authority that makes the call? Is it the commissioners?
Well, think about it for a minute. I'm assuming that in my case, since I'm an appointee of the court judges, they would make the ultimate call. If I refuse to come, they'll have to impeach me, Charles, and reappoint somebody else, right?
Appointee of the commissioners.
Who are you appointed by, Charles?
Commissioners.
Okay, and then Ruth, what's your?
Commissioner, I think.
Okay, makes sense. But I know I'm appointed by the judges, so I don't know why, but that's what's been my fate ever since. And when I agreed to be reappointed recently, it was their administrator who got in touch with me, so I know that's still the case. Okay, that's all. I just wanted to make my protest official, and we'll wait and hear from Michael to see what he feels he can do or what he feels he must do. Any other comment before we move to adjourn?
Move adjournment.
Second the motion.
It's been moved that we will adjourn. Please call the roll for adjournment.
Dr. Ketchum,
Yes,
Mr. Manueli,
Yes.
Ms. James,
Yes.
we stand or sit adjourned. Bye-bye.